نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Apparent contradiction. In actual sense, there could be no discrepancy or contradiction in Quran and Hadith. There could be no contradiction in Quran within itself or Hadith within itself. There could be no two Hadith contradictory to each other in true sense. Likewise, Quran and Hadith, they cannot be at variance with each other. However, when we review the literature, we will review those evidences now, after that longer period, the way it is presented to us, the way we read it, the way we try to find out the injunctions from Quran or the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we may see a contradiction because whatever Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. So in any religious matter, there could be no two opinions at all. However, at times you would find certain apparent contradictions, and that is because there are many reasons behind it. That is because how people reviewed it, noted it, presented to us. But if you look at mujtahid imams, they would review it and they would be able to, most of the time, square the circle, explaining the situation. This is for this situation, that is for that. This is in this regard and that is in that regard. There could be certain abrogation happen if they could identify the time, so that would be hinted to in either Quran or in Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there will be abrogations, for example, due to the time difference. Something that was earlier permissible later on became impermissible. In early stages, when Muslims came to prayer, it was allowed for them to talk, even in the prayer, talk to the point where if some latecomers wanted to know which rakat you are in, you can ask him and he would tell you while in the prayer. Obviously, later on it became abrogated and you can't do that anymore. Likewise, there are many situations where this is what happened. So the time would clarify whether there was abrogation or not. Then there is situational ruling. You would find two hadith giving different interpretation. One is for this situation, one is for that. So scholars, the fuqaha and the mujtahid imams, they will be able to identify that for us. And there are examples of that. Likewise, there are certain hadith which go against Quranic ayah, apparently. But again, there will be a distinction, a difference. For example, the ayat وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. When the Quran is being recited, to stay quiet and listen attentively. فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ, listen attentively. وَأَنصِتُوا, and stay quiet as well. Now, when you look at the hadith, some hadith would suggest that you should recite Surah Fatiha. If you did not, your prayer is not valid. So the fuqaha, the imams, would read it and then they would clarify the situation. For example, Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah would say the Quranic ayah is for individual when they're praying on their own, or the imam when he's reciting on behalf of others. So when imam is reciting, everyone should be staying quiet, and he would have done Surah Fatiha on behalf of everyone else. When you're praying on your own, you should do Surah Fatiha as well. So you would not find a prayer which is done without Surah Fatiha being done, either by Imam for everyone, and everyone else is listening to the recitation of Quran by Imam quietly, and individual reading on their own, or the women praying on their own, and they're reciting Surah Fatiha in their nawafil, in their sunnah. So there's no rak'at which there is recitation of Surah Fatiha has been missed at all. Technical differences are, something else, but true in true sense, in practical sense, You would not find anyone not reciting Surah Fatiha in the prayer. So this is how they would square the circle. Likewise, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he in certain hadiths has combined prayers. He allowed that to combine prayer, and there are certain reasons mentioned. For example, raining, someone being sick, someone is traveling, and yet Quran says, "Inna salata kanat al mu'minina kitaban mawquta." Prayer has been appointed and made obligatory for the believers to offer at an appointed time. The prayer is obligated in the fixed times, which is 5 times a day, as per Quran and many ahadith. So there could be no less and no more fard prayer in a day. Now, this is at variance with the hadith where Rasulullah combined, even as a traveler. Well, there's a hadith where Rasulullah combined even without having any of those three excuses: no raining, no sickness, and he was in travel. He was in Medina. So obviously, there's apparent contradiction. How would you square this? Yes, it's apparent combining. Hanafis would say this was apparent combining, not a true combining, meaning that both prayers were done within their own times. But the first prayer, which is Dhuhr, was done at the end time, and Asr was done at the beginning of the Asr time. Likewise, Maghrib and Isha were done. Maghrib at the end of Maghrib time, and as soon as Maghrib is finished, they offered Isha prayer, which was the beginning of Isha time. So it's apparent combining, but not a true combining. Hence, that is permissible even while you're in your city, not traveling, not sick, no raining. You can still do it even now if someone needs to do it. But obviously, you do not want to delay your prayer, the first one, to that late time unless there's a good reason. So you would find certain ahadith, certain Quranic ayat apparently at variance with each other, but not in true sense. Fuqaha, ulama would be able to identify that and then teach us. Now, there may be a situation where we might find a hadith which is really, you can't square it with Quran. So then the fuqaha would make different rulings. If they cannot act upon both and they're mutually exclusive, then they would have to either try to find out which one abrogates the other. Now they would also look at the umum balwa. It was a matter of public interest and everyone was involved in that. Why only one person narrating it? Perhaps he got it wrong. Perhaps he misunderstood. Or the individual who narrated it was a faqih sahabi, was he someone who was like, mature, sensible, senior enough to transmit that and know all the nuances and details around it. So fuqaha would look at all of them. Was it that the Sahabi narrating is is Khalifa? So his opinion, his action. Likewise, is the Sahabi acting on what he's just said? If he's not acting on what he said, means that this is abrogated in his understanding as well, or he has some other hadith which hasn't reached us due to whatever has been lost in the history. Not everything is written down. Obviously, not from hadith, not everything is written down. From Quran, yes, but not from hadith. So a lot of stuff was written down, and a lot of stuff got lost when Mongols destroyed all the libraries in Baghdad and other parts of the Muslim world. So the absence of something not being written in books does not negate the fact that they have been there, they might have been there. How do we know? Through the action of the Ummah over 1400 years. If they've been practicing something and no scholars have censured it, that becomes the binding, that becomes the norm and the sunnah or the way of the Ummah. And there's a tacit approval from the fuqaha, from the ulama of the times. So we do not question that. But anyway, so the default is that there will be no difference of opinion, no distinction, no discrepancy in Quran and Hadith, no contradictions. Even if you find some, there are ways to square that, and many a time it will be the fuqaha's job, and they would identify one and the other. There could be more than one way of looking at things, and when they do it, you take the imam that you follow in all those opinions, you be on the safer ground rather than filling and fulfilling your own desires and need and following what you feel like doing it. Then obviously you have made yourself the authority over them, the judge and jury over that imam who is really way higher in knowledge, and you acknowledge that, and yet you are the one judging between those two big imams, for example. And obviously that's arrogant and that's completely ridiculous. One can only judge those who are less in knowledge than himself, not someone superior to them. Anyway, yeah, so either the narration has been abrogated, or the Quran could and the Hadith could be squared together in such a way that it becomes the rule for specific and general situations. It could be for individuals, it could be for a group of people, it could be for men and women, it could be for collective action, or could be individual action. And likewise, there could be many other explanations. And if you do not find in any situation, then the fuqaha would stay quiet if they cannot prefer one over the other. If it is Quran versus a solitary narration, obviously Quran would always supersede. If it is Quran versus uh, Hadith Mutawatir, and they're both of the same level with regards to their authenticity and authority, then one would stay quiet and leave both and go on to some other sources to arrive at a ruling, which is either the action of Sahaba, for example, or fatwa of the Khulafa or Rashidun or other people. So there are many different ways of looking at that. Alhamdulillah, this has all been sorted out, and the scholars are very clear on that. May Allah give us tawfiq to understand. This is just a brief outline. Obviously, there's a lot more nuanced discussion in and around that.